Okay, so I've been living in this house for the past 7 years, but lately I've been noticing weird things happening. Like some of my collection coins and other stuff keeps moving from their place, but I think maybe it's my brother. But the weirder thing that has happened was last week. I've been seeing a lot of shadows watching me from time to time, like peeking from behind walls and the TV and sometimes my computer screen. I haven't seen it doesn't have any eyes, but that thing is starting to make me feel very uncomfortable every time I see it watching me. I've been feeling like someone has touched my feet, and as I'm writing this, that thing decided to watch me again from behind the computer screen. I don't know what to do. Side note, the neighbor next door cut his neck the last year 2 times, and unfortunately the second time he was successful and he passed away. He always looked at me with certain anger before he died, as I was the only one who called the police when he placed the 800-watt speakers at full blast around 1 to 2 a.m. This is another experience I had. Since I can remember, I've heard stories from my great-grandmother, like the time one of the doors inside of her house, a very heavy and big wooden one, would slam in the middle of the night. My grandmother woke up, and she was so scared that she went to her brother's room. At this time, she was around 8 to 10 years old. Of course, my great-grandmother didn't believe her, and they would get into trouble. Fast forward to 2018, one of my uncles passed away of unknown circumstances on Christmas at home. We all were in the living room waiting for my other uncles to arrive. They're taking my deceased uncle from the morgue to the funeral home. Suddenly, the bathroom door slammed and we all tried to call my brother because we thought he was inside. We even heard the toilet flush, but no one answered our calls and the door was locked. That's when my brother and my cousin came into the living room with us. They said they were playing in my great-grandmother's room. By the time we didn't know that. My grandma unlocked the bathroom to look inside, but no one was there. My great-grandmother had told us when we went to visit her after that incident that she saw a kid running in the corridor several times before and after the incident. She asked us if my brother was with us as she saw the kid again, but we told her no, he isn't with us. Hi, a friend of mine sent me some audio. She said she wanted to try out some app that starts recording when it hears something, because she wants to hear if she talks during her sleep. There are 2 recordings. It's in Polish language. In the 15-second one, you can hear her mumbling while sleeping, and at the very end, you can clearly hear someone saying something like "spi." It means sleep in English in the imperative way, like someone is trying not to wake her up. In the second one, I can hear something like "Zebi zobi odpazel," and it means let her rest. This one is really silent, but it sounds like it. She said she was home alone. She has no animals, no radio, no TV. The computer was turned off. And she lives at a flat on the 4th floor. The windows are on the side of low traffic roads so we can eliminate car sounds. And her door was closed, so she couldn't even hear a buzzing fridge. What are your thoughts? Hi, it's curiousraven. I am so sorry if I completely butchered the Polish language, but I am going to insert the 2 clips here.
Zostało wtedy jak spałam. No tak się tak rozpływałam. Śpić.
I first learned of the supernatural through a Frank Edwards book. It started out with someone on their deathbed talking to deceased relatives and proceeded with about 20 more stories. I was freaked out a bit and talked to my mom, who told me that nothing was really proven, and a few of the stories were probably made up to boot. In the following few years, there were enough articles and even other books disputing all things paranormal, including a story or two I had read about. I became more skeptical. A few years later, my grandmother died. We were 800 miles away and started making plans to join my dad, who had stayed with her in her last days. The night she died, I was in bed in a bedroom I shared with my 2 younger brothers when this happened. Our door was opened to the hallway, which was lit but dim enough not to bother me. I was laying in bed and ready to nod off when something I can only describe as a faint ball or leaf of light floating into our room. To this day, I'm still not sure what it was, and I'm not 100% that my mind wasn't playing tricks on me. I know I saw something. I am questioning it to myself all this time, but watching nonetheless. It floated into the room and paused at the foot of my bed for a few seconds. It did the same for my middle brother and then proceeded to my youngest brother, who was the farthest from the door. It paused at the foot of my younger brother's bed for a second and then headed towards his head. It looked like it paused there and then was gone. I laid there thinking a few minutes and then kind of faded off somewhat offhandedly, thinking she had tucked him in. I never told anyone about it because I wasn't sure what I'd seen or if, and nobody would believe me anyway, so I left it. About 40 years later, I'm talking to my mom, and out of nowhere, she says, "You do know that your grandmother visited your youngest brother on the night she died, don't you?" I was blown away and didn't even answer. I was just so stunned. My youngest brother and I were never close and never talked about anything. He had also moved about 700 miles east. We re-established contact about 2 years before he died and got on good terms. One night on the phone I asked him about it, and it turns out we had seen about the same thing. He described it as feather of light too. I told him my version about how she stopped at the foot of each bed, but when it came to him, how she had floated up to the head of his. I told him I thought she was tucking him in. He said, "Hell, I thought she was trying to smother me." It was our last huge laugh before life caught up with us both. I still question that night, but little bro was spot on with what happened. I am praying now that he can ask her in person and get back to me one day. I have a story that I've shared to a few other posts. I was around the age of 6 to 8. We lived in this house where a girl killed herself. The house was 2 floors, and well, my room was on the top floor, and the room where the girl ended her life was right below mine, which may explain the whole situation. I've never really told anyone this, so it's hard to put into a story format, I guess. But this room I shared with my sister, and we also had a closet in the room. And to lock the closet, it's like a hook going through a hole. So to lock it, you have to purposely lock it. Me and my sister were in there one time, and it slammed shut on us. And we were scared at first, but we just thought it was our mom. That was until we actually tried opening the door, and we knew it was locked, and we started screaming. We hear our mom run up the stairs, and then she unlocks the door. We explained to her as we're walking out, and my sister ends up stepping on a nail. I don't know if it's a coincidence, but it happened. I asked to go with them to the hospital, but I was told to stay home. I was still shaken up, but I wasn't really scared, I guess. That was until I was just chilling in my room, eating some chips, and the same closet started like shaking as if someone was in there stuck. I just sat there. I don't remember exactly how I was feeling, but I knew I didn't get up at that time. We also had an extra room that was used for guests on the left side of the closet, and it was never in use. But I remember hearing knocking from the door as well. I don't know. I would always be sick and never go to school. I would always have nightmares. This house just, I don't know. I don't remember much, but at the same time I remember everything. It's hard to explain, but it's not at the same time. There is so much to say, and something I wish I could go back there and experience the same thing. And at other times, I wish I never lived there. Okay, I'm gonna try to keep this brief. Some friends and I have been on a paranormal kick, mostly fueled by a new member who is very spiritual. Let's call her Sarah. She's Native American and overall very in touch with her environment. It doesn't really correlate, but you know. Tonight, me, Sarah, Charlie, Rhea, and Billy decided to go to a cemetery in the area, one rumored to have a few specific ghosts. And Sarah, Charlie, and I pulled out the good old handmade Ouija board while Rhea and Billy walked around. We set up at the first spot and tried for about 20 minutes before moving to a secondary location. At the second location, we set up again and then began. Not too long after I started getting tunnel vision, but it's dark, so I edged it off as being a mental thing or whatnot. A few minutes or so later, I heard something behind us, to which Sarah said she had seen something. Charlie agreed. We sat in silence for a few minutes and watched as a figure moved around behind graves, 10 yards or so away. We called out to Billy and Rhea thinking they're playing a prank or something, but when we got no response, we decided it was time to head back to the car. As we walked, we heard footsteps behind us. Sarah and I heard breathing in our ears, and Charlie was focused on getting out. We got back to the car to find Billy and Rhea sat against it. We asked them repeatedly if they'd followed us, but logistically, it wouldn't make sense. We still heard something behind us as we approached them, and even if we hadn't, they would have had to run over a hill in the pitch dark with scattered graves, which we would definitely have noticed. They told us that they had seen a figure standing on the hill, and when they approached it to see if it was just a grave, it disappeared. Their experiences started at 2:14 a.m., just about the time ours did. We quickly left the cemetery and went and got Wendy's. It doesn't end there, though. We decided to go to another cemetery, one a bit further away, where Charlie and I had seen stuff before, specifically a black, almost shadow that would sit on the stairs and walk up them as you approached. I can't say they look human. It was more of a clump of darkness, like your eyes can't focus on it. But anyway, we get to the second place. We drive around and find a place to park before getting out. We didn't use the Ouija board at this one, because immediately the air felt heavy. Rhea stayed in the car while Billy, Sarah, Charlie, and I set out. We walked around for a few before Billy ventured off to sit in the grass to look at the stars. The rest of us decided to approach the stairs. Around this time, I had an intrusive thought that it's not something I'd usually think. And it wasn't in a voice I recognize. It kind of just popped up. I really don't want this to sound like a made-up story because it was all just so scary. But the thought was, don't pay mind to the people in the trees. I kept this to myself as I do with most paranormal things in the moment because I don't want to sway anyone else and create false experiences. I'm sorry. I'm trying to make this brief, but I am just word vomiting. The stairs led up to the house, sort of. Like a tomb thing where coffins are. I'm not sure the word. They led through a fairly wooded area that brings you to another point as a graveyard. But they are not the only stairs. We walked along a path for a few minutes and found a different set of stairs to go down to navigate to the stairs. As we approached the area, we started feeling worse than before. The air became heavier in a way. We decided to take a different staircase that led to the same house thing, and once we did, there was sort of a little landing area with stairs on the left and right that led to the tomb thing. Sarah stopped abruptly and was staring up at it. I heard something to our left, and in my peripheral I could see a tall looming figure almost. Every time I would actually look at it, it would sink into itself in a way. I told Sarah to walk up the stairs because the thing on the left was really creeping me out, but she said she couldn't stop staring at the house. Apparently she had seen something else to our right, and she said if she looked away from the house something bad would happen. Charlie grabbed my arm and asked if I saw the thing on the right, and I did. It was another dark figure that again couldn't focus on, and it almost sucked in the light around itself. I don't even have the words to describe it. I ended up grabbing Sarah by the arm and Charlie, and we started running to our left, where I originally saw the figure. We just kept running, yelling Billy's name because we knew we needed to leave. He didn't answer immediately, but once he did, we realized he was up the stairs on the hill. We were terrified. To get to him, we had to run up through the woods, which we all agreed felt the most heavy. Through the pitch black darkness, we ran up the steps, all trying our best to stay to the right, where the forest was less dense. Sarah stopped us, and she looked terrified. Apparently, she was nervous that Billy was a skinwalker, but we took the chance to get away from whatever was in those woods. We grabbed him by the arm and ran back to the car to find Rhea, who apparently had a super bad headache. The whole thing was terrifying. In both places, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. We are now doing a cleansing spell